The rain was coming down hard when Daniel leaned against the car, convinced his chest was about to split open. His left arm tingled, his heart was racing, and his vision blurred around the edges. For a moment, he was absolutely certain that this was it, that his story would end right there in that soaked parking lot. As coworkers rushed toward him, a single thought slipped through his mind like a late whisper. It wasn't just fatigue. 3 months before that moment, Daniel Brooks believed his life was nothing more than hard work and ordinary exhaustion, but that fatigue was, in truth, the first step in a turning point he hadn't recognized.
Before we move on, if you know someone who keeps saying they're just tired, save this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories like Daniel's might be exactly the push someone on the edge needs. At 47, Daniel Brooks woke up every day to the same scene. The alarm going off before sunrise, the room still half dark, and a dull ache in his lower back as if he had spent the night carrying the weight of the world. He would hit the alarm with more force than necessary, sit on the edge of the bed, and stay there for a few seconds, staring at the floor, trying to remember when his life had turned into nothing more than this: getting up, working, paying bills, enduring. The kitchen smelled like reheated coffee. He had started setting the coffee maker the night before to save time in the morning. The mug with the chipped rim waited for him by the sink, looking as tired as he felt. Daniel took the first sip almost without tasting it, more out of routine than enjoyment. He was always late, always rushing, always promising himself that he would actually rest on the weekend. But the rest never came. Saturdays turned into days for catching up on everything that didn't fit between Monday and Friday. Sundays were half grocery shopping, half worrying about Monday. "It's just fatigue," he repeated to himself. It was the line he used with his ex-wife when she asked why he had been so irritable, why he never smiled in family photos. It was what he told coworkers when he turned down invitations to grab a drink after work. It was what he told himself at night when his chest tightened for no obvious reason. Fatigue, nothing more. At work, Daniel was known as the reliable guy who handled everything. He arrived before most people and left after nearly every one. He knew every detail of the logistics company where he had worked for almost 20 years. His managers had grown too used to handing him the urgent tasks because he always figured out a way to get them done. Over time, that competence became a cage. If something went wrong, they went straight to his desk. If someone called in sick, he was asked to cover. If a client complained, Daniel was the one who had to call and fix it. He took pride in being the guy who never failed, but inside, he was starting to feel like he was disappearing from himself. It was on an ordinary Tuesday that his body decided it had had enough. Daniel was in a meeting, sitting at the end of a long table, listening to the manager talk about goals, budget cuts, and new responsibilities. The room was stuffy. The projector hummed constantly, and spreadsheets filled with numbers flashed across the screen. Suddenly, a wave of dizziness caught him off guard. His heart started pounding, his hands were sweating, and his breath grew shallow. It must be the strong coffee, he thought, trying to play it off. He pressed his fingers against the edge of the table, took a deep breath, but the feeling only got worse. His face grew hot, his vision blurred around the edges. He raised his hand, interrupting the manager. I need a minute," he murmured, standing up. He walked to the bathroom, almost stumbling, the hallway feeling longer than usual. He locked himself inside a stall and leaned against the cool tile wall, trying to steady himself. His heart felt like it was trying to break out of his chest. His legs shook. For a moment, Daniel thought he might pass out right there. It took several long minutes before his breathing started to return to normal. When he finally managed to look at himself in the mirror, he saw a face he barely recognized. Deep, dark circles, dull skin, lifeless pies. "Just fatigue," he repeated again. But for the first time, the words sounded hollow even to him. In the days that followed, the episodes continued. In the mornings, physical exhaustion. In the afternoons, silent anxiety attacks. At night, a sense of emptiness that no show, news article, or endless scrolling on his phone could fill. Forgetting something here, a word that wouldn't come, an important document lost in the pile. Small things, but they bothered him. Daniel, who had always been organized, began to slip. When his sister called on a Sunday night, she immediately sensed something in his voice. "Dan, are you really okay? You sound distant." He almost answered, "Just tired," but the question lingered after the call ended. Distant from what? From whom? The breaking point came on a rainy afternoon, right at the end of the workday. Daniel was walking across the parking lot with his briefcase in hand when he felt that tightness in his chest again. But this time, the pain spread down his left arm. His legs weakened. He leaned against his car, rain hitting his face, unsure if the trembling came from the cold or from fear. A coworker saw him and rushed over. "Man, you're pale. Sit down. I'm calling someone." In minutes, he was in an emergency room, hooked up to monitors, answering rapid-fire questions from the medical team. It wasn't a heart attack, but it was close enough to be a loud warning. Tests, more tests, and a list of recommendations. At the end, the doctor pulled him aside for a calmer conversation in a quiet office. "Your results show that you've reached your limit, Daniel. This isn't just physical. Your body has been carrying too much for too long." Daniel tried to make a joke. "That's just how work is, doctor. We get used to it." The doctor didn't smile. "The problem isn't the work. The problem is that you've drifted so far from yourself that you don't hear any warning signs anymore. Everything becomes just fatigue. But it's not. It's a scream." The words hit him hard. Daniel stared at the floor, uncomfortable. No one had ever spoken to him like that. Drifted from himself. What was that even supposed to mean? Go home today and rest. But over the next few days, try asking yourself an honest question. At what point did you stop living and start merely enduring? That night, the bedroom felt quieter than ever. The ticking of the wall clock echoed through the room. Lying there, Daniel stared at the ceiling, feeling both heavy and restless. For the first time in a long while, he left his phone on the nightstand without touching it. Something more urgent was demanding attention. The unsettling sense that if he kept going like this, it wouldn't just be his health that slipped away. It would be all of him. And there, between one breath and the next, the question that would change his life surfaced for the first time. What if my exhaustion isn't the end, but the beginning of something I've been too afraid to face?
He had his coffee sitting at the table with the TV turned off. He looked around and noticed details he hadn't seen in months. The stack of bills sitting in the empty fruit bowl, a dead plant in the corner, old photos on the wall showing a smiling man with his arms around a woman and a little girl. The man in the picture looked like someone else. There was light in his eyes. There was an unstated sense of future in that image, as if everyone believed good things were still on the way. He picked up one of the photos and ran his finger over the dusty glass. It was his daughter Emily's 8th birthday, before the divorce. In his memory, he could see himself promising he'd be more present, that he would cut back on overtime, that he'd planned trips that never happened. How many times had he said, "We'll figure it out later. I can't right now. It's just a phase. Things will calm down soon." But things never calm down. He sat on the couch and stayed there, remembering. He remembered the courses he wanted to take but postponed, the book he started writing and abandoned by the 3rd chapter, the guitar leaning in the closet with its loose strings, the conversations he avoided because he was afraid to face his own dissatisfaction. He realized it wasn't just his body that had been carrying weight. His soul was buried under all the choices he never made.
That same afternoon, he decided to go out for a walk. Nothing heroic, just a loop around the block, like the doctor suggested. The cool air hit his face, bringing back a bit of the life that existed outside the office walls. He passed a small park and stopped for a few minutes, watching people who seemed to have time. An older woman reading on a bench, an elderly man playing with his grandson, two friends talking slowly, in no rush to leave. When did I stop living like that, simply being present? He wondered. On the third day of medical leave, he received a message from his daughter. "Dad, I heard about what happened. Are you really okay?" He hesitated before answering. His automatic response would have been, "Everything's under control." But he decided to try a different kind of honesty. "Getting better. I think I pushed my body way too far. We need to talk calmly." Emily replied a few hours later, suggesting they meet for coffee over the weekend. Daniel agreed, feeling a mix of happiness and fear. It had been a long time since they'd had a real conversation, one that wasn't rushed between obligations. The night before their meeting, the restlessness came back stronger. He walked around the apartment as if he were looking for something he couldn't name. He opened drawers, dug through old boxes. He found a black notebook where he used to jot down ideas years ago. There were random phrases, beginnings of stories, reflections on what it meant to live with purpose. He couldn't remember the last time he'd written anything in it. Flipping through the pages, he found a note written right after Emily was born. "Promise, never drift away from who I am so I can teach her to do the same." The irony hit him like a soft but precise punch. Somewhere along the way, that promise had been swallowed by bills, quotas, and fear of change. He sat at the table with the notebook open and, for the first time in many years, started writing again. Not a story, not a grand life plan, just a question. Who is Daniel Brooks, besides the exhausted man who works too much? The answer didn't come right away, but the simple act of trying to formulate it already felt like a step. He met Emily at a small cafe downtown. She showed up wearing a blue coat, her hair tied back, carrying books and a worried expression. They hugged with the slight awkwardness of people who aren't sure how to measure the distance after too much time communicating only through quick messages. "You look thinner," she said as she sat down. "And different." "Different how?" he asked, trying to smile. "I don't know. Less on autopilot." They talked about his health scare, the episode in the parking lot, the doctor's instructions. Emily listened quietly, sometimes frowning. "Dad, I was scared. You always seemed indestructible, the man who handles everything. But I've seen you tired for years. I just didn't know how to bring it up." He took a deep breath, feeling a mix of shame and relief. "I didn't know how to talk about it either, Emily. I always thought admitting I was exhausted was a sign of weakness, so I kept pushing until my body screamed. And now, what are you going to do?" The question caught him off guard. No one had ever asked him with such simple sincerity. What are you going to do with your own life? He looked out the window for a moment, watching cars go by, people rushing along the sidewalk. Then he turned back to his daughter. "I don't know yet, but for the first time, I'm willing to find out, and that's new." Emily nodded, her eyes slightly teary. "I just want you to really live, Dad, not just get by." Her words echoed long after they said goodbye. On the way home, Daniel felt something shift inside, even though he couldn't tell in which direction. He realized his exhaustion wasn't only physical, it was also the weight of living a life that no longer felt like his, one guided by obligations and fear instead of conscious choices. The next morning, he woke up a little earlier. Instead of heading straight for the coffee maker, he put on sneakers and went down the stairs. He walked through the half-asleep neighborhood as the sky slowly brightened. It wasn't a big run, there was no heroic sweat, but just steady steps toward a new habit. As he walked, he remembered the doctor's words. Ask yourself, when you stopped living and started just getting by? Maybe that simple walk was the first answer. When he got back, he picked up the black notebook again. This time he wrote, "Exhaustion is a signal. If I keep ignoring it, I'll miss the chance to start over." Under that sentence, he listed 3 small actions for the day: walk again, call his sister just to talk, and cook something instead of ordering takeout. Small things, but filled with intention, a way of reclaiming some presence in his own life. As the days away from work went by, Daniel noticed that the world didn't fall apart without his constant presence in the office. And even more surprisingly, he noticed that something inside him was starting to open up, as if a door that had been shut for years was slowly creaking back open. It wasn't comfort yet, it was unfamiliarity. But in that unfamiliarity, there was a spark of curiosity. If I'm not just the exhausted man who works too much, who can I become from here?
Returning to work wasn't easy. The moment Daniel stepped through the company's door, he felt the old instinct tighten his shoulders, take a deep breath, and brace for another battle. The hallways, the voices, the smell of burnt coffee in the break room, everything seemed ready to push him back into autopilot. But this time, something was different. An uncomfortable awareness that if he went back to exactly who he had been before, the whole scare would have meant nothing. Coworkers approached him with ready-made lines. "Hey, back on your feet? Got plenty of rest now. Come back full force, huh? Knew you wouldn't go down that easy, Brooks." He smiled politely, but inside felt a stab. Coming back full force had been exactly the problem for years. He no longer wanted to be the man who took pride in ignoring his limits. In his first meeting with the manager came the test. The man opened a folder filled with papers, reports, and spreadsheets. "Daniel, great to have you back. Since you're here, I need to talk about something big. The board decided to cut a team and concentrate more responsibility on people we trust. You're obviously one of those names." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. The manager laid out the new plan. More accounts for him, more projects, more hours, maybe a raise in the future if everything went well. As he listened, he saw himself, in his mind, back in the parking lot, leaning against his car, arm tingling, chest tightening. He remembered his daughter's worried eyes asking him to really live. He remembered the line in his notebook, "If I keep ignoring this, I'm going to lose my chance to start over." When the manager finished, he looked at Daniel expecting the usual answer, the "no problem" that had made him so dependable. Daniel took a deep breath. "I appreciate the trust," he began, heart picking up speed, "but I can't take all of that on the way it's being proposed." The silence that followed felt heavier than any spreadsheet. The manager frowned. "What do you mean?" "I had a serious health issue, as you know. It wasn't just a scare, it was a sign. If I go back to working the way I did before, it's only a matter of time before I break for real. I can contribute, I can take on some of the responsibilities, but I need clear limits. Hours, realistic workload, team support. If that's not possible, then I'll have to rethink whether this is the right place for me." His own words surprised him. He had never spoken like that, especially not to someone above him. But when he finished, he felt a strange lightness, like he had taken off an invisible backpack he didn't realize he'd been carrying. The manager, thrown off, leaned back in his chair. "Look, Daniel, I won't lie. This complicates my planning, but I understand that what happened to you wasn't small. Let me do this. Give me a few days to adjust the plan. I can't promise a miracle, but I can see what can be redistributed." As he left the room, he realized that moment was, in practice, the beginning of a new kind of life, one where he didn't sell himself completely in exchange for empty recognition. It wouldn't be simple, and he knew that, but it was a start. The next few weeks were a kind of laboratory. He kept his morning walks, even on days with light rain, cut back on coffee, started having lunch away from his computer, turning the screen off for half an hour. At night, instead of collapsing in front of the TV, he read a few pages of a book or wrote in his notebook. Small habits that many people might dismiss, but for Daniel, they were acts of reclaiming himself. Eventually, people around him began to notice. A coworker commented, "You seem calmer, Brooks. Even the way you talk to clients has changed." He shrugged. "Maybe I'm learning to talk to myself first." In home, Emily noticed the difference during their calls. He asked real questions, listened without rushing, remembered details about her routine and her college projects. During one of their weekend meetups, she joked, "Who knew a near heart attack would bring my dad back?" He laughed, but felt the truth behind the joke. The scare had been the doorway to something bigger, the chance to reconnect with the man he had buried under layers of obligation. Still, life didn't turn into a fairy tale. There were setbacks. Some days he found himself accepting too many tasks, staying late, skipping his walk because there wasn't enough time. When that happened, his body sent reminders. A stronger headache, tightness in the chest, a different kind of exhaustion. The difference was that now Daniel listened. Instead of ignoring it, he adjusted. He didn't scold himself or call himself weak. He simply acknowledged that the old pattern still existed and needed patient dismantling. Months later, the company faced an even bigger change. A merger proposal brought uncertainty, cuts, and opportunities. A chance came up for Daniel to take a more strategic role, higher salary, but with the explicit expectation of total availability. Night meetings, constant travel, phone always on. This time, he didn't need another collapse to understand what was at stake. He sat down with a blank sheet and wrote 2 columns, what I gain and what I lose. In the first, money, status, a feeling of importance. In the second, health, time with my daughter, space to write, walks, peace. When he finished, the choice was obvious. In the meeting with the board, he thanked them for the offer and declined it. "I'm in a different place now. If I accept this, I'll betray everything I've rebuilt since I almost got seriously ill. I'd rather grow slowly than lose myself quickly." For his 50th birthday, 3 years after the scare, Daniel planned something simple. Lunch at home with a few friends and family. Emily brought a cake. His sister showed up with a huge salad. Coworkers arrived with laughter and stories. In the living room, the guitar that had been forgotten for years now had new strings and was tuned. Someone asked him to play something, and Daniel, embarrassed, tried a few old songs he remembered. "You should play more," his sister said. "You can tell it does you good." He smiled. "I'm learning again." After the birthday song, while people talked in small groups, Daniel stepped back and watched. Loved ones, a lively house, the sound of laughter mixed with clinking glasses. A deep, almost strange gratitude rose in him for having had the chance to reach that moment. He thought about how easily things could have ended differently in that rainy parking lot years earlier. Later, when the house was quiet again, he sat at the table with his black notebook open. He wrote, "Today at 50, I feel more alive than I did at 30. Not because I have more achievements, but because I finally inhabit my own life." He stared at the sentence for a few minutes, feeling its weight and lightness at the same time. Before bed, he picked up his phone and recorded a voice message for himself. "Daniel, if one day you hear that voice again saying, 'It's just fatigue, keep going,' remember what you learned. Fatigue is a message, not an enemy. When it shows up, don't bury it. Ask what it's trying to tell you."
And please, don't wait for your body to scream again before you start listening. As he lay down, he didn't feel like someone who carries the world. Instead, he felt the true weight of being human. Limits, fears, desires, now accompanied by respect. He had discovered that starting over after 40 isn't bravery reserved for a few. It's a possibility for anyone willing to look honestly at the gap between the life they live and the life they wish they were living. The world outside was still demanding, fast, loud, but inside Daniel, there was a quiet space where he could finally find himself. And in that space, fatigue stopped being a dead end and became what it had always been. He just hadn't noticed. The first sign that a new life was ready to begin.
Maybe today you're also repeating the same line Daniel used every single day. It's just tiredness. But deep down, you know it's not just that. Your body feels heavy, your mind won't slow down, and life seems like a loop of obligations that never ends. Daniel's story isn't about a flawless hero. It's about an ordinary man who almost lost everything because he chose to ignore the signs for far too long. What changed his life wasn't a miracle or some major opportunity. It was the courage to ask himself an honest question. At what point did I stop living and start merely holding myself together? The exhaustion you feel might not be the end of the road. It might be a call to adjust your direction, to say a few no's, to bring back simple habits, to ask for help, to finally face choices you've been postponing for years. The truth is tough, but freeing. No one is going to take care of your life for you. If you don't listen to yourself, your body will eventually shout. Today, the action is small but real. Take 10 minutes alone, without your phone, without noise, and write down 2 things on a piece of paper. First, what exactly is draining you? Second, what you could start changing, even if it's a tiny step. This isn't about becoming a completely different person overnight. It's about slowly reclaiming the person you once were, the one who is still there inside you, waiting for you to have the courage to come back home.